it's too late. Because Rick Snyder in Michigan, he was on the precipice of losing. So was Walker. I saw the polling. I don't know whether it would have happened. Illinois, Pat Quinn lost. He wouldn't have lost if that Republican wave hadn't hit at the very end there. It wasn't as bad as the 2010 one, but it was pretty bad. But I'm just sorry, you have to badger politicians to start talking about unions and working people with pride and wages being an important part of the economy. I am so sick to death of legislators, and I'll use Peter Barca as an example. I like him, but I say, so what's your platform? Well, we want to help the middle class. Oh, well, congratulations. There, you've really articulated something there. Congratulations. And I like to agree there. It means nothing. It's bland drivel. You don't have to sound like a madman or a crazy woman. Russ Feingold was never afraid to talk about labor. And he's coming back. We're going to have a lot to cheer for in 2016.
Don't tease me.
I'm teasing you. He's going to make a comeback. But he was never ashamed to talk about it. He was never afraid to say that he was proud to be from Janesville. He ran ads in 1992 against NAFTA. Didn't hurt him. What hurt him was the 2010 wave and the fight over Obamacare. We should have just done Medicare for all. So my view on this is that we got a lot of educating to do, but we've got to have a spine, and we've got to quit letting them try to pigeonhole us with labels. Like you're being far left. You've got to attract a wider group of people. Well, we got to give them a reason why we need to do what we need to do. And this is going to be a long-term project now. I hate to say this. I'm not sure Democrats will be in the majority the rest of my lifetime in the state legislature. I don't know what's going to happen. Ohio, 1990, they got control of everything, and they haven't had the legislature since. They had a Democratic governor briefly, and he was a good one. But they haven't had the legislature since 1991 in Ohio. And that's a state kind of similar to Wisconsin. Oklahoma, now there's a state not similar to Wisconsin, but although they banned Sharia law, thank God. They did right to work, and by the way, they still lost the Mercury Marine plant to Wisconsin. That should be a great example of, and wages have gone down, everything that we predicted would happen, but they've been able to turn that state that once had Fred Harris as a senator and Democratic governors over the years. They've turned that thing so solidly red. Now there may be a little racism involved, as hard as that is to believe. But this is real serious. We got a mountain to climb. I think playing this sort of generic, consultant-tested, soft, Tom Barrett sort of, I don't think it's effective with people anymore. You got to give people a reason to go to the polls. And if we ever get the power back, first thing I'd do is I would move those governor's races to presidential years.
Yeah.
I do like the thought that, in a presidential year, the more people that vote with us. Just think about why these are such crazy, angry, hateful people. By the way, have you noticed this about Republicans? They're pillaging us right now, and they're still not happy. They're still grumpy, unhappy, irritable people. Let me just say this. We have got to keep getting back up, but we've got to learn our lesson and have a message. And I don't think the message that Democrats had in Wisconsin in 2014 was a particularly strong one. A better message may not have pulled our candidates over the finish line, but we got to talk about building things here year after year. Because it's going to be a long slog. But if we surrender, just think what they'll do. So keep pressure on legislators, keep making noise on this right to work stuff. So, yeah, let me take some questions. Sure.
One of the things that you can tell people, do you think you might need a plumber or an electrician sometime? If the right to work comes in, there will be no licensed plumbers, no unions, journeymen, to take care of that.
Well, it will affect the quality
Right.
of the trades. There's no doubt about that.
It's a very important thing.
Actually, Walker's already trying to take care of that. He's already trying to weaken the licensing for hairdressers and barbers and plumbers.
And nurses.
So they're already doing. They made it tougher to sue a nursing home that mistreats a patient too. They're such nice people. Okay, I think you were second.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have an uprising of fighting back, you've got to have somebody to fight for. And where on the horizon do you see somebody who is willing to do that?
Let me see, what shirt are you wearing there? What's that shirt say? It says, I'm with Elizabeth Warren. Well, I don't know whether, it doesn't sound like Elizabeth Warren's going to run this time,
She is.
but I think she's having a profound impact. But go ahead.
Just to engage in some dialogue.
Yeah.
I got a call about 2 o'clock this afternoon for a survey. Normally I just, phone, that's the end of it. But for some reason I hung on, and it was a survey, and it was a political survey, and I suspect it was paid for by Hillary Clinton. But I would say anywhere from 36 to more than 50% of the questions had to do with Elizabeth Warren and the stuff that she is standing for. More controls on the banks, more consumer protection. Let's get out of the Middle East as quickly and as cleanly as we can. Let's, would you vote for Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton? Would you vote for Jeb Bush or Elizabeth Warren?
Sounds like a Hillary poll.
I mean, it was, that's what I say, I think it was Hillary's probably the only one that's got enough money to pay for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some of the money that's paying for that poll is somebody that's probably not wanting banking reform. Somebody else had their hand up. Did you have it? Go ahead.
When the unions were strong and they were making good money, nobody realized that if it wasn't for unions and their wages, the people under them would be making good wages.
Absolutely.
So we had too many young guys that don't think about it.
No, because we didn't foster a culture of, and look, some of the problems with unions became a big business. But
Jimmy Hoffa.
right. But there is a new union movement sort of taking shape, and if you read in these times, they're writing about this, is that the uprising in the union movement needs to take over the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party can no longer afford to be the Democratic Leadership Conference from the early 1990s. Terry McAuliffe, Bill Clinton, Al Fromm. These were terrible, horrible people. I didn't get to the question of the gentleman with the hat on there.
Well, before I could ask the question, he pointed to that. Most of us are union members and most of us are retired, and we raise kids. with our union jobs and union benefits.
It's just terrible. You ought to be just ashamed of yourself.
But none of our kids, when I go around, a lot of people, they either don't attend or they go on to Silicon Valley. They don't want nothing to do with union. What's union? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So the fault is with us, that we had the good life, we raised our family with security, and now we're wishing that we had taught those kids, that look, get a union job, or if you go somewhere, establish a union.
Well,
how
here's-
many kids show up at your gathering? Nobody.
Yeah, here's the problem. So it isn't just blue-collar manufacturing jobs in the quote-unquote Rust Belt that have been hurt. Silicon Valley's been hurt very badly by outsourcing. And there's all sorts of new employers popping up. And there's always, frankly, I can't believe that we haven't organized Epic in Madison. They're literally building a city out there in Verona. It's unbelievable. With a progressive owner. That should be unionized. Union, but I'll never forget after the election in 2010, I met with Leo Gerard from the United Steelworkers, and he talked about how disappointed he was that the president and the Democratic leadership didn't help pass the one thing they wanted, and that was card check. Card check would have made it much easier to prevent employers from threatening employees who want to organize. Make it much easier to start unions. And the Democrats went there. That would have been the single best piece of legislation to help organize people. There's also a mindset. There are a lot of liberals over the years that have gone along with this notion of, okay, well, we'll go along with some of the corporate stuff, but then, we'll build up the safety net and we'll give people a little more on the earned income tax credit and a little more. And frankly, that's how we've lost some blue collar guys. Liberals do the right thing by stopping people from falling through the safety net, but there's kind of a subtle message to people. It's like, well, they're just a handout party. I mean, part of our Republicans say they're for hard work and then do everything they can to destroy the wages and benefits of work itself. Democrats have to embrace unions as a way to raise the economy up for everyone through hard work and involvement. It's the American way. And we've gotten away from that. Look, safety net's important, and welfare is important, and the earned income tax credit is important, but there's nothing better than hard work and the union job and being organized with people in a community. Yeah.
Okay, we need to get the Democratic Party strengthened. We have a chance to have a new leader of the Democratic Party in the state. Who's gonna do that?
Not gonna be me. I've said too many outrageous things over the years.
Well, that's what they
I
need.
don't think that.
There's a guy named Jason Ray in Milwaukee who's about 28, who's part of the Chamber of Commerce of the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Alliance community. Joe Winnicke, former state senator from Verona, who was party chair. I like him. I think he's good. I think he's got a good message.
Needs to go to AA.
So does half the state.
Maybe that's his problem.
But I don't know who's going to win that. I think we're still going to see some more candidates, but I don't want to see another Mike Tate, because Mike Tate spent more time on the golf course in Waukesha County golfing with rich people than he did organizing. Looks like you had a question.
Well, I want to say one thing. I'm really glad that you spoke up about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is really destructive. It's going to be destructive.
On so many levels.
To people, it's destructive to the United States and the free world, is actually what it does. And I believe this group should really dig in deeper to what it's really about. It's unbelievable. I can come up with maybe some paperwork on it and stuff.
It is so,
It's horrible.
it's so frustrating that people don't know about it. How many people you think know about the Trans-Pacific Park?
Almost nobody.
Hardly anybody.
You know that Jim Cramer from Mad Men from CNBC? I wouldn't call him one of the great lefties of all time, okay? He goes on Morning Joe last week, and there's, elitist, Mika Brzezinski, and of course Joe Scarborough's not a liberal at all, but they talk about income disparity, and he goes, hey guys, I'm not supposed to say this because I work with Wall Street, but ever since NAFTA, we've been seeing a disparity in wages, and I just have to point out that, Ross Perot might have been right. And you have people on Wall Street verbalizing it, and Scarborough and Brzezinski had nothing to say. It's like he was speaking Chinese. They had nothing to say, it didn't animate them. These people in Washington, D.C. and New York, they have no clue about what happened in Freeport or Beloit or Janesville. That plant closing in Janesville, that didn't just affect Janesville, that affected people in Dane County. We had a middle-class African-American population in Madison that reversed community, that worked for a lot of the suppliers and for GM. They lost their job and they moved out of town. The Mayor Soglin was telling me about this. He said, we saw this strange demographic change where Madison started losing middle-income African-Americans, and they figured it out. It was the end of the decade when GM closed. They went to other cities. So this thing has had a profound effect. And for Paul Ryan to go on television this morning and say, well, there's one thing I can agree with the president on, and that's free trade. You son of a bitch. The nerve of you to live in this community and see what's happened. And don't tell me that GM plant closing here didn't have anything to do with free trade, because parts being made in Mexico make it much more conducive to keep a plant open in Texas than Wisconsin.
I'd like to add more to what you're saying there, Most people like to blame it's Republican and Democrat, and that's not it at all. It's go back to 1970 when Nixon went to China. Remember, it was called Communist Red China, and wanted to make trade with them, etc. Now, where are your jobs now? Okay, Communist Red China is actually where they are. Now they don't call it Communist Red China anymore.
No, they don't.
But it didn't stop with Nixon. It went on through, well, you could say Paul Ryan, you can name any president from then on, Republican or Democrat.
Right, no, they've all.
They're all doing it.
And why is that? Because Wall Street funds our political kickbacks.
Correct. It's the big money is running all of them, because it all comes down to one thing, where we're at now. In my trade, I'm in union, sheet metal worker. In 1970, we had 80% of the work union, 20% was non-union. Right now, it's the opposite way. It's 20% union, 80% non-union. And these are good paying jobs, but half the time, you're out of work because you can't find work. I've traveled everywhere from Alaska to California to Texas, everywhere for work. Get a call on Sunday night, and you gotta be 800 miles away Monday morning at 7 o'clock. Go do that. Not knowing where you are, where you're gonna sleep, where you're gonna eat.
We've got
And
people.
I've
We've
done
got
it.
people here that have to drive to Kansas City to work.
Right.
Yep.
My neighbor's done the same
Indiana.
thing,
Yeah.
You gotta do what you can do. But it's not Republican, Democrat, they're all doing it to us.
Well, there are a few that didn't.
Well, there's a couple here and there,
Right.
I can give, I really don't care much for Russ Feingold, but he did one thing. He says the NDAA, what was it, the Homeland Security Act? He did not vote for it. He was the only one that did not vote for it. He stood up against it.
Why
That's
don't you
one of
like
the-
him? I'm curious as to why you don't like him.
Oh, he's voted for all kinds of stuff. He voted for things like, I watched all those votes literally. He voted for the Democratic Party, and he voted on it to let the unions, and like I said, I'm union, I get a union pension, that they don't have to pay anymore on my cost of living allowance, et cetera, okay? They just destroyed that for 8 years now.
Well, I tell you,
I don't get cost
I
of living.
think you
so
have to take
no matter what the
some-
inflation is, I lose that much every year in my income.
Let me just say this. I think
And
you
that's
have to take
the whole
somebody
thing.
in totality in their career And he cast probably 20,000 votes as a senator, and I couldn't be prouder of him for voting against NAFTA, most favored trading status with China, voting against the Patriot Act, voting against deregulating Wall Street, one of 8 that voted against repealing the Glass-Steagall Act. I have to say, he voted against the war. I just have to say, in his totality, not only did he make the right votes, he articulates them. He's not ashamed to stand with you publicly. He never has been. So I just, to each his own. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to say something in defense of Russ Feingold. Besides the fact that I issued him his first library card. It's very great.
When he had those goofy glasses.
Our daughter went to the Holy Land in Palestine as part of a peace mission in 2006 after she graduated from the University of Wisconsin. And this was in May. And all summer long, after she'd gotten back, my phone always sounded hollow whenever I had a phone call. And it sounded like somebody was listening in all the time. And I was accusing people in the family, and finally there wasn't anybody home. It wasn't, And so I contacted Russ Feingold's office, and I said, I think my phone is bugged because my daughter went to the Holy Land. And we didn't even have long distance on our phone. That's what was so funny.
Yeah.
But anyway. And his person that answered said, I think Russ better handle this himself. This is, And he did. And he discovered that every one of the families that had a child go on that Holy Land Peace Mission had their phones bugged all year, all summer, by Homeland Security. Okay? And so he put a stop to it, and what happened was we got a packet in the mail of all the transcribed messages of all of our phone calls.
Isn't that chilling?
The whole summer. And my aunt was in the hospital much of that time, and it must have been so boring for people to listen in on these conversations we were having, but it was all there. Absolutely all there. But he put a stop to that, not only for us, but for all the other families. And President Bush thought that he was doing the right thing, because after all, our kids were on a peace mission. They were doing something terrible.
Yeah, they were unlawful combatants.
Terrorists.
Go ahead, sir, with the beard.
Yes, hi. With union dues, you hear a lot of talk about union dues going directly to the Democratic Party. Now, that's the argument. Well, if I'm Republican, I'm on union, I don't want my money going to the Democratic Party. But isn't there forms they can sign, or is that true or
First of
not?
all, union dues don't go to political parties or candidates.
Well, that's the conception everyone, that's one of the biggest arguments.
Oh, yes, they've been quite good at spreading that lie over the years. What a lot of unions have is they have a political action committee or a fund that members donate. And if nobody has